It's been 3 days now since the berries have left, although I still hear the voices at night. I'm wondering, what are they planning? Has this run its course by now? The invasion of the berry plushie army that's going to take over the world. I can move on to other side plots if you want me to. Like, there's a group of alien squirrels living in the bush outside my house. We can roll with that. It's like a Family Guy episode, you know? It's like, this week Peter's a pirate. Next week he's an astronaut. Like, we can roll with whatever. All right. What are we talking about today? Oh, okay, yeah, this is a good one. Okay, so today we're going to be talking about Yamato, and this is interesting because I kind of had this whole theory regarding Yamato's devil fruit ability, or maybe not even necessarily devil fruit ability, but ability to transform into something, and I was really excited to see how that was going to go and if that was going to pan out in any way, this theory, and it doesn't seem like it's going to pan out that way, because this is a holdover back from when I used to think that Kaido was a legitimate dragon, right? So I was like, before we knew about the existence of the Ua Ua no Mi, the fish fruit model duck dragon, I threw out the idea, and a few other people threw out the idea, okay, what if he's just a legitimate dragon, right? Like, wouldn't be the weirdest thing we've seen in One Piece. Yeah, maybe Oda wants us to think that he has a mythical zone or an ancient zone or something. What if it turns out that dragons, which we already know that exist in One Piece, they existed back during Ryuma's time, it's really steeped in the lore of the celestial dragons and everything. Their symbol is the hoof of the dragon, so dragons definitely existed. We saw artificial dragons at Punk Hazard. What if legitimate dragons in One Piece still existed, or maybe like Kaido is one of the last ones, and they had the ability to transform into humans? Because there's a lot of myth and stories and video games, where like D&D, where dragons have the ability to transform into human disguises. So I was going with that. I was like, oh, that would be really cool if it turns out Kaido is a dragon to begin with, one of the last dragons to live in the One Piece world, and he just had the ability to transform into his human disguise. And if Kaido got together with somebody, maybe a human, or maybe another species, or maybe even another dragon, and then they had Yamato, it would make sense Yamato would also be a full-blooded dragon, or like a half-blooded dragon, or something along those lines, right? And so I'm like, okay, let's roll with that. Let's roll with Kaido being a dragon, and then Yamato being like half-dragon. And we even saw that when Yamato went up against Sasaki, the teeth came out, right? And like these jagged teeth, like about to transform, and Yamato didn't, because then Frankie showed up and the battle got, started in that way. But I was like, oh, okay, so where's this gonna go? Now, it clearly is not that case, which is unfortunate, because I thought that would have been a really cool way to take One Piece. Now, maybe not all of that completely is scrapped, because like I said, dragons did exist. They might not have the ability to transform, but I think the whole dragons subplot is definitely going to be referenced again. Not just from the fact of like the artificial dragons and the world government being connected to dragons, but also you got Dragon, like Monkey D. Dragon, like Luffy's dad. He also has the name Dragon. That might be relevant in some way. Dragon, last time I checked, started with the letter D, and out of the 26 letters of the alphabet, I would say the letter D is probably the most relevant in all of One Piece, so anytime anything pops up with that letter, you're gonna be a little bit, well, maybe, I don't know. So dragons are definitely gonna be more relevant down the line, and the fact that Kaido even, might not be a legitimate dragon, but he has the Ua Ua no Mi model dragon, that's relevant in and of itself. So I said, okay, if that's not the case, there's a backup theory here, and it's a theory that's been around for a while, but I really like this one too, so we're gonna roll with it, okay? Because it ties into Chinese mythology, this is great. I get to bust out the giant mythology book again, which is always fun. I'm actually reading a lot about, I have it right here, I'm actually reading a lot about Egyptian history and Egyptian mythology right now. There's a lot of pharaohs. You thought there was only like the big ones like Tutankhamun and everything. Actually, Tutankhamun's original name was Tutankhaten, which led to a whole other thing involving his dad trying to turn Egypt into a monotheistic society. But I want to do an Egypt video at some point. Maybe I'll do a Yu-Gi-Oh video again just so I can talk about Egyptian mythology. But Chinese mythology, right? It involves this, okay? Yamato has a mythical zone with the ability to become a white tiger, a mythical white tiger, or Byakko, okay? There's some awesome fan art here by an artist that has done some work before, and I've featured his stuff on the channel before. This is by Stefan, awesome name. And so here we have Yamato transforming into the hybrid Byakko and full Byakko form. Now, you might be asking yourself, if you're unfamiliar with the reference to Byakko or Chinese mythology, or the four constellation beasts, or the four gods of Chinese mythology, you might be wondering, like, okay, Is it just a regular white tiger? Well, here's the situation here. And if you've seen Yu Yu Hakusho and also Bleach, it's referenced there, and also a bunch of other animes where it's probably referenced, you got the 4 constellations of Chinese mythology, or the 4 gods, or the 4 beasts. They appear a few times. So in the 4 Saint Beasts arc of Yu Yu Hakusho, they appear there, alright? The 4 beasts are the black turtle of the north, the vermilion sparrow of the south, the Azure dragon of the east. I'm going to repeat that one again because that one's probably the most relevant. The Azure dragon of the east, okay? And then the white tiger of the west. All right, and then those are the 4 of the beasts. In Maze Castle, you got Genbu, who was the big hard-shelled rock guy. He's the turtle. You got Byakko, who was like the white tiger, like were-tiger dude that Kuwabara fought against. Then there was Suryu, the ice dude, where Hiei just completely wrecked his shit, which it's Hiei, so that's my favorite fight of the 4 Beast arc. And then you have Suzaku, who was the leader of the 4 Saint Beasts, who Yusuke fought against, and that was the Vermilion Sparrow, okay? In Bleach, there was that Kido spell that Hachigen used against Baragon, the 4 beast barrier that's also based on the 4 constellation gods, okay? So that's pretty cool, right? And so if we're gonna go along with this, if the whole dragon genetic thing doesn't pan out, I'm like, alright, let's go with the white tiger Azure dragon thing, because that sounds awesome, right? Okay. And also, since I mentioned a white tiger and an Azure dragon, I also mentioned a vermilion sparrow. Many of you might be commenting down below, Marco must be the vermilion sparrow. So we got 3 of them right there. We got a dragon, we got a sparrow or a phoenix, or if, you know, Yamato's going to turn into a white tiger, we got the tiger. So now we just have a black tortoise that we need to include in here. And I just started thinking about that. I'm like, well, if we're gonna go with Yamato and Kaido sort of being opposites on that front, east and west, and in a lot of Chinese lore, that's another reason why I want Yamato to be a white tiger. The idea is that the tiger and the dragon are sort of rivals. And this is depicted a lot of time in anime and in Chinese mythology, also a little bit in Buddhism and Taoism as well. In Taoism, with the concept of yin and yang, a lot of times the tiger and the dragon can represent yin and yang respectively, okay? And I've looked into this a little bit. I knew that this was a running theme in anime a lot, you know, because like for Bleach example, going back to that, you have Yasutora Sado, Chad, Tora, tiger is in his name, and then Ryu, dragon, and so there was a reference there. So I was aware that this dragon-tiger rivalry thing existed in lore, but I never really looked into it too much. And just after doing some quick research on it, I basically arrived at the conclusion of like, okay, they're like 2 sides of the same coin. You know, the dragon is supposed to be very, very stoic, very calm, and kind of like plan out everything in order to attack. And then you have the tiger, which just has brute strength and attacks. They both have brute strength. They both have a lot of power, but the direction they point that power toward, or the way that they initiate the attack, is different. Whereas the tiger just kind of storms through with brute strength, and the dragon is a little bit more calm and collected, maybe more tactical. And so for that reason, though, they should both be, you know, revered, and that kind of comes down to like the 2 sides of the coin there. And then so that's east and west with the dragon and the tiger, and then you have south and north. You have a vermilion sparrow, and then you have a black tortoise, okay? And so I didn't do a lot of looking into the sparrow and the tortoise, but just from the animal perspectives, you have an elegant sparrow that can fly pretty fast, and then you have a black tortoise that's on the ground, and tortoise are particularly slow. With that being said, Marco is fighting against King right now, and King is, you know, decked out, you know, head to toe with that full leather BDSM gimp suit, so yeah, that's black leather right there, or latex, or whatever the hell that thing's made out of, and we still don't know what King's species is. So I threw out the idea in a couple videos ago, and that's been out for a while too, that he's some sort of like reptilian lizard man or something, like, and he lives underground or something, as opposed to like the Skypians that live above. There's like a subterranean race, you know, sort of like that in One Piece. Maybe that's what King was. And so, you know, you have turtles that are reptiles. Maybe King is some sort of reptile creature. That would make sense too. And then you can have the 4 constellations all coming together. Because yeah, it is a little strange. We don't know what Yamato's ability is yet, but we know that Kaido is an Azure Dragon. Like, literally, the name of the devil fruit is Ua Ua no Mi, model Azure Dragon. Fish fruit, mythical variant, model Azure Dragon. And Marco is there. He's a phoenix. Not so much a Vermilion Sparrow. I think that's actually a Yu-Gi-Oh card now that I think about it. But a, blue fire phoenix. But the reference is there. I think it's there. So, yeah, if we just go with that, we already have two of the constellations kind of represented so far in Wano. So if Yamato is a tiger and then King is the turtle, I think everything will kind of flow together here. You have Marco versus King, and then you have Kaido versus Yamato, because in the last chapter, and the reason I'm doing this now, is because Yamato left Momonosuke and Shinobu there in the little area there to keep them safe, and then took one of the decoys of Momo, and then headed up to fight against Kaido, because we found out through Momo that Luffy's up there by himself, and so Yamato's like, wait a second, you mean Luffy is fighting against my father one-on-one? And Momo's, yes, there's the only two voices that are left on the roof. And Yamato's like, I need to go. I need to go help him. I need to go help the brother of Ace right now. And so I'm going to bank on the idea that Yamato, probably more than anybody on Onigashima, is aware of this fact, of the one-on-one Kaido wins sort of idea. It's kind of like a proverb in One Piece at this point, right? Like, if it is one-on-one, bet on Kaido. There it goes, right there. Bet on the dragon duck god of legend and lore. Now, with Yamato turning into a white tiger, why can't we just go with, like, a regular Zoan in this particular instance? Why does it have to be a mythical variant, okay? Well, just going along with the logic here that the high-ranking members of the Beast Pirates, they either have ancient Zoans, or with Kaido's case, they have a mythical variant. Considering Yamato is one of the strongest members there, even though Yamato personally doesn't like Kaido, doesn't like to fight alongside, the Beast Pirates, still one of the strongest members on Onigashima. So I'm gonna go along with the fact of having a mythical variant, like Kaido, okay? I just think that would make sense. I also think it would make sense that, once Kaido was gathering together all of his, Beast Pirates, decades ago, maybe even before they moved to Onigashima, they moved to Wano, because we don't know the whole situation with Yamato's birth. Yamato is 28 years old right now, 8 years old during the execution of Odin and all that stuff, but I think Kaido began to settle in Wano Kuni. It was somewhere between 30 and 20 years ago, because 30 years ago from the current timeline, that's when Odin left with Whitebeard, and then eventually Roger and everybody. And so Orochi was sort of taking into power there. He was kind of squirming his way into power, but he really hadn't achieved it yet. He wasn't Shogun quite yet. It was when Odin was gone that Orochi finally became Shogun, and then, Kaido started taking over. So let's say, maybe like shortly before Odin returned after his journey with Roger. So like maybe 25, maybe 26 years ago, that's when Kaido landed at Wano and started the whole operation with the factories and everything, something like that. Because when Odin returned to Wano to drop Toki off and Momonosuke and Hiyori to get the rubbing of the poneglyph, he did notice that there were factories already springing up. So Kaido had probably already been involved at that point. So from the timeline here, it's possible that Yamato could have been born as soon as Kaido set up shop in Wano, or it might have been a little bit before that, and we still don't know the whole circumstances behind Yamato's mother or anything like that. But I would assume Kaido having the power of a mythical Zoan, and, if he was scouring the globe looking for really strong warriors and pirates, and of course other really strong devil fruits, it's no coincidence that King, Queen, and Jack all have ancient Zoans. It wasn't like they all ate those fruits at different points and then Kaido found them. I think it's pretty obvious that, Kaido recruited them into the Beast Pirates first, and then with Kaido's power and network, he found all these ancient Zoans and gave the ancient Pteranodon fruit to King, gave the ancient Brachiosaur to Queen, and the Mammoth to Jack. I'm assuming that's all that went down there. Maybe, who knows, maybe one of them had the fruit beforehand, but I think it's too much of a coincidence for them to all have the ancient Zoans at different points, and then all joining up with the Beast Pirates. I think they joined up first, and then the fruits came later. And so it makes sense that if Kaido did find a mythical Zoan somewhere, let's say in this situation, the mythical, I guess it would be the cat fruit model Byakko, right? Just like you have the cat fruit model Jaguar? Was Rob Lucci a Jaguar? I always mix that up. if he was a leopard or a jaguar. He was a leopard. He was a leopard, right? Yeah, I know he wasn't a cheetah. He was a leopard, I think. Okay, so just like, you know, Rob Lucci's was like the carnivorous zone, cat, or neko no mi model leopard, it would be neko no mi model white tiger, you know, mythical variant white tiger or Byakko or whatever you want to call it, right? And so that's how Yamato ended up getting the power, so let's just roll with that. Now, when it comes to special abilities, you know, Kaido has all this crazy stuff he can do as a damn dragon god duck, right? He can shoot lightning, he can shoot wind blades, he can generate wind blade tornadoes, he can fire fire, he can fire fire, for God's sakes, all right? These are all things that are closely associated with dragons. Now, like I said, we're kind of mixing mythologies and lores here, because in Chinese mythology, I remember when Kaido first showed up, this was before he did the Boro Breath or anything, when Kaido first appeared in the clouds over Okabore Town, and the end of that chapter was literally Luffy like, Kaido's a dragon? You know, we didn't know anything about what he was going to be capable of doing yet, right? I did a deep dive into this, figuring out, like, okay, he's clearly a Chinese stylized dragon like Shenron from Dragon Ball. I'm like, okay, so what are Eastern Chinese dragons known for? And I was doing a lot of research, and I discovered there was a lot of references to, like, water. So whereas Western dragons, like in Arthurian lore and everything, you know, they breathe fire, kind of like the dragons we saw at Punk Hazard, Eastern dragons are more of, like, water elements, okay? And so I threw out the idea maybe Kaido isn't going to breathe fire. Maybe his thing is going to be weather. And while he does have the ability to manipulate clouds in some way, Oda definitely went with fire. He has the flame clouds, the fire clouds, as well as the Boro breath, lightning breath. Fire is definitely a motif there, even though if it might not be super prevalent with Chinese dragons, Oda was like mixing lore here, okay? So he could do the same thing with, if Yamato very well is a Byakko, is a white tiger of Chinese lore, we could definitely add stuff onto that. You know, like, I don't know, Thundercats or something, you know, Yamato turns into a Byakko and it's a giant tiger, right? And then every step the tiger makes, just boom, thunder and lightning erupt from its paw pads. Nyan. You know, it could be something like that. But if we're gonna go along with just the idea of, like, the yin and yang aspect here, and the whole idea of, like, you know, the dragon being more stoic and more, you know, tactical, and the tiger just, you know, rampaging through everything with brute strength, yeah, we could do that with Yamato, because that's kind of what Yamato has been doing up until this point. When Yamato met Luffy, it was just like, hang on a second, BAM! And just knocked out Ulti and all the other members of the Beast Pirates. That seems to be what Yamato's really good at, and also has a lot of endurance along the way from what we saw fighting against Sasaki's Armored Core and everything like that. Yamato can take a lot of damage, can tank a lot of damage from what we've seen, right? So, with that all being said, maybe we don't need the ability to shoot fire or lightning out of the cat's tail or mouth or anything like that. Like, roaring tiger cannon! Nothing like that. Just Yamato can turn into a hybrid Byakko or a full-fledged giant white tiger, and, like, the endurance, the stamina, the strength, the agility, you know, it just gets knocked through the roof when it comes to that, right? Like, can you imagine that? Like, Yamato's going up to the roof, turns into a tiger, jumps on the platforms, boom! Breaks through the freaking dome of Onigashima, lands there as a giant tiger, and then it's like, Father, I'm here to face you now. Luffy, jump on my back. We shall have a glorious battle that will be sung about for the ages, right? And then so Luffy's like, okay, Yamato, and then jumps on Yamato's back, bang! And they're like jumping through the air. Yamato's like doing Geppo, like the airwalk, as a freaking giant white tiger, and Luffy jumps, uses Gear Fourth, and like, BAM! You know, that would be sweet. That would be cool. Also, if we have Kong Gun named after a giant monkey, and then we also have the Snake Man form, which I feel Luffy definitely had to take inspiration from the Kuja because of Snake Man, we got Tiger Man next. That's another theory that a lot of people were throwing out there. Because Kaido is a dragon, we gotta have his enemy, his biggest rival, be a tiger. So people thought, alright, what if Luffy's next form of Gear Fourth is Gear Fourth Tiger Man? I thought it was gonna be Lion Man, going with, like, you know, Snake Man being observation, Tank Man being armament, and I thought Lion Man for Conquerors would make sense because King of the Beasts, right? Lion, and also the Thousand Sunny. But no, Tiger would make sense too. In fact, This would be something crazy. Instead of getting Gear 5th or an Awakening or anything like that from Luffy during this fight, what if Luffy just on the spot, that's how Luffy's good at fighting, you know, he comes up with shit on the spot, what if he just develops a new form of Gear 4th right there? So on Ruskaina, he developed Tank Man, Bound Man, and Snake Man, and that's all he had, but at this moment, especially if Yamato shows up as a giant tiger and they fight for a little bit, Luffy's like, holy crap, I have an idea, Yamato. I just learned this new Conqueror's Hockey technique. What if I take this and combine it with Gear 4th? Woof! Shh! Tiger Man! Roar! And then it's like freaking Guy Sensei from Naruto. Hirodora! You know, like something like that. That would be sweet. Let's do that. Let's go with that. Okay, so Yamato's a giant white tiger, Kaido's a blue dragon, Marco's a vermilion sparrow, and I'm guessing King might be the black tortoise. I'm assuming. Okay, let's lock in. We're all good with that. We're all right with that. Okay, cool. So yeah, and beyond that, like, what does this really mean in the grand scheme? Probably really nothing. Just Oda really wanted to incorporate maybe the Chinese, you know, 4 constellation, the cardinal animals, into the story. He's kind of included everything else, like a hodgepodge of all these different myths and lore from across the world and the time. I mean, hell, that would have been something if I would have made the, you know, the Pharaoh video, the Egyptian video about Alabasta, because that's all it's based off of. Literally, Pell is Horus. He's the falcon. He's the guardian deity of Alabasta. Horus is the guardian of the living of Egypt, okay? So there you go, right? Okay. I just like talking about mythology, and this was a fun one. Thanks to Stefan again for making this amazing piece of artwork here with Yamato in the different forms. That was really badass, of course. Yamato as Byakko, I'm gonna go with that. I just hope it's cooler than the Byakko we got from Yu Yu Hakusho, because that one was just, you know, that was like that fight where Kuwabara really gives it all, and then he thinks that Byakko's dead, but then he comes back, and then he beats him again, and then we think he's dead, but then he comes back again, and Kuwabara's like, damn, how many times do I have to kill this guy? Come on! I can't do a very good Kuwabara. This will be Tekking and Barry. Mythology lives on. It's almost as important as geography. In fact, you could have geography without mythology, but you can't have mythology without geography. Yes. Later, everybody.